Good evening. I've muted everybody but me. Please ensure that any mobile devices or mobiles are switched off. This is the executive meeting of the 25th of March 2021 of Woking Borough Council. If you are not speaking or being asked to speak, please mute your microphones. If you do not mute your microphone, it will be muted for you. To assist people viewing the meeting, could everybody turn off their cameras and only turn them on when speaking, and also introduce yourselves whenever you speak. To ensure the smooth running of the meeting, could members wishing to speak please use the hands up facility on Teams whenever possible. Please note the meeting is currently being webcast live. The members of the executive meeting are myself, John Halsall, who's the leader of the council, John Kaiser, the deputy leader and executive member for finance and housing, Parry Bath, environment and leisure, Ulla Corinne Clark, children's services, Charlotte Haytham Taylor, regeneration and arts, Pauline Jorgensen, highways and transport, Charles Margetts, health, wellbeing and adult services, Stuart Monroe, business and economic development, Gregor Murray, resident services, communications and emissions, and Wayne Smith, planning and enforcement. Supporting the meeting are Susan Parsonage, who is the Chief Executive of Woking Borough Council, and Anne Hunter of Democratic Services. There are no apologies for absence, everybody's here. And before we start the meeting, I'd just like to make a few preliminary remarks. Tonight is the last formal council meeting of this municipal year, which is an opportunity to reflect on the last 2 years. Of course, the pandemic has taken central stage. It was the anniversary of the beginning of the first lockdown 2 days ago. Our lives have changed unrecognisably for some, and many lives have been so sadly lost. I can only restate my condolences for those who've suffered so much. I'm humbled by the support that we receive from the charity, voluntary sector and our many volunteers. I particularly want to thank them all. There has been a tremendous partnership work across the board. Our GPs continue to be magnificent. And a big thank you yet again to all the carers, doctors, health staff, social care staff, health police, fire, rescue, ambulance, teachers, school staff, charities, volunteers and our staff. In short, everybody who has stepped up to the plate and made it possible for life to continue during these appalling times. The weekly rate in Wokingham today is 40.9, which is well below the peak of 606 on the 6th or the 4th of January, but still compares very badly to the below 5 in August. We suspect we will hover around this figure for some time. Happily, both hospitalisations and deaths have declined substantially. Deaths within the UK for those who have been diagnosed with COVID within 28 days have risen above 126,000. Please encourage everyone, your family, friends and colleagues to observe the rules. It is a crucial time with a third wave beckoning across the channel. Please join me again in a moment's silence for those who have died during this dreadful pandemic in Wokingham, the UK and around the world, and those who have suffered not just the effect of the virus, but the problems which have accompanied it. Please also remember in your thoughts the very sad and recent death of Jude White, a very popular member of staff. She was a person who brought a ray of sunshine to everybody she met. I never heard her say a bad word about anybody, despite her handling some of the most difficult portfolios. She had been battling cancer in her inimitable way and positive way for the last 2 years. Thank you. Thank you. As I said tonight, is the last formal meeting of the municipal year. Some of the literature I've seen foretells it will be my last in this seat, but there are also other fanciful claims. Whilst COVID has been centre stage for the last 2 years, the Council has been addressing all of its responsibilities. Tonight's papers reflect the span of issues that the Council addresses. But before I address policy issues, I would like to commend the officers and members of the Council who are fundamental to our achievement and our role. My objective was to encourage officers and members to be bold, take initiatives and innovate, to do what they have to be motivated, proud to work for the borough and confident and happy in what they do. Most importantly, happy. They need to feel that whoever they work for will praise what they've achieved and recognise in doing so they will make mistakes and in turn give that joy and support to those who report to them. There will be mistakes, no worries. We need to own them, correct them and learn from our mistakes. I've been very proud to lead you and you've done me proud. And what has been achieved during the last 2 years is more than I could have wished for. It is a credit to the officers and members alike. It is a huge acclaim to the amazing, decisive and inspirational leadership you have had and they have had from Susan, your Chief Executive, supported by your directors. It is also a credit to my executive members, committee chairman and other members of my administration. Thank you to you all. It is no accident that we're the healthiest place to live and one of the most desirable. It is a tribute to your council, its officers and the administration. This has been achieved over many years' hard work. Our finances are enviably strong and our medium plan funded and ambitious. CIPFA and Ernst & Young are both complementary of our financial management. It is this fact which allows us to be imaginative and bold in the future. We are not anticipating any service reductions as other councils have done and are doing. We have seen few defaults in our income or council tax. Our COVID levels are comparatively low and our high streets relatively vibrant. When we return in mid-May, we should be a few steps from the release of lockdown, and it will be necessary to work out where we go from here. The administration worked very hard to restore the democratic processes after lockdown started, and by and large we did. Some of it was halting, and despite caveat elector's constant criticism, we expanded transparency generally, involvement of other groups, particularly the leaders and their deputies, and the remit of overview and scrutiny, particularly with regard to the budgeting process. Sometimes technology has failed us, and sometimes the protocols which we needed to adopt have been inadequate. But with all the comparators, we restored meetings sooner and more comprehensively than other councils. It is clear, therefore, that we shall return quite soon to some form of face-to-face meetings. But also it is clear there is no date in the future when everybody will be back in the office, if only for the fact that with any form of social distancing, we shall not have the space. So we shall need to inch our way to hybrid meetings, continuing with virtual meetings where appropriate, and starting face-to-face where appropriate. You may have heard me say that we, the Borough Council, are the golden thread which runs through the borough, the indispensable partner. Our only purpose is to serve our residents as best we can. In that service, there are no real limits except the ones we set ourselves. We are here to do some great things, some spectacular things, but we must focus on our borough. I shy from global and national movements which may in part represent us, but also lead us down blind alleys. I shy from philosophical, political or moral arguments. We're not here to represent central government, but our residents. We've been very much on a limb on certain issues. I successfully led the opposition to the housing numbers white paper last year, not only in the borough, but also in England. I took the decision not to accept transfers into care homes, which were not COVID-free against government policy, and we were at the limit of our discretion in helping businesses with grants. I'm as yet not in the tower, but then who knows? Simply, if we can continuously improve the lot of our residents, then we have achieved what we are here to do. And what does this mean? safe, secure, happy and healthy. Everybody should be able to lead the life they choose without fear if they do no harm to others. We must encourage that uniqueness and support it. We should celebrate diversity, be anti-racist and do all we can to promote equality. We need to identify where there is a need and deprivation and resolve the root causes if we can. Our goal is an excellent and continuously improving wraparound service for our residents. We must leave the planet in a better shape than we found it and a place where our children can thrive. However, any organisational strategy must be holistic, understanding how one objective impacts on others and within a financial framework which is affordable and stress tested. The medium-term financial plan is the enumeration of this strategy. This administration has the depth of experience and professionalism to ensure that this is the case. Our plan, set out in the corporate vision and at the front of the agenda, but including COVID, there has been no other plan put forward by any other group. So COVID. We must ensure the rapid rollout of the vaccination, provide lateral flow testing so life can return to normal, aid in every way in business recovery and job creation, create a safe but normal environment for the future, establish the shape of the new normality for our staff, and help our high streets return to normality. We must enrich our lives of our residents by getting every school in the borough and children's services to a minimum of good, Ofsted, and provide sufficient school places. We can build 3 new primary schools, create an environment economy that encourages new businesses and helps small and medium-sized businesses thrive, encourage active lifestyles with easily accessible leisure facilities and open spaces as well as art and culture across our borough, promote equality, celebrate diversity and be anti-racist, and identify the areas of need and tackle the causes of deprivation. We must build safe and strong communities, continuously improve our care services with greater focus on individual need over statutory requirement, strategically invest in the future of all our communities, building opportunities to live, learn, work and grow across our borough. Protect our communities, invest to keep our streets secure, maintain our low crime rates and reduce our antisocial behaviour. We must change the way we work, deliver value for money and become less dependent on taxes for income, allowing us to fund improved services without additional cost to you, our residents, making our services easier for all residents regardless of ability or capability, and improve our communications and transparency so you know what we are spending your council tax on, and more importantly, why. We must make a cleaner and greener borough, dramatically reduce our carbon footprint to neutrality by 2030, increase our recycling rate to 70% and send zero waste to landfill. Fight the causes and prosecute the perpetrators of fly tipping. Build solar farms to generate our own clean energy. Invest in greenways, cycle paths and leisure centres. Plant 3,000 new trees across our borough. We must put the right homes in the right places, protect our green spaces and our natural environment. Fight unnecessary speculative house building by all means. Build 1,000 new council starter and key worker homes in the next 4 years, affordable in name and cost. Build the infrastructure our communities deserve and challenge our government's imposed target by all means available. We must keep our borough moving, invest in the quality of our roads, pavements, paths and greenways, tackle traffic around our schools, combat congestion to ease journeys across the borough, invest in sustainable alternative transport options for moving us across the borough and target areas of poor air quality. We can only achieve these objectives. We have been diligent and astute financial management, which has achieved balanced budgets for each of the last 19 years. We come out of the pandemic with strong finances, which other authorities are envious of. We are anticipating no service cut, indeed servicing enhancements. Our balance sheet is strong with very low and prudent level of current and future borrowings covered many times by saleable assets. This administration has delivered in the past, been solid in the pandemic, and has a great plan for the future. During this evening's executive, it reflects all the work that we've done in the last 2 years, where there has been an immense amount of activity with an unprecedented number of policy papers covering every aspect of our council. But it is the tip of the iceberg, as we are ambitious to step up the pace to achieve service excellence for our residents. I'm delighted to present tonight's agenda, which illustrates the enormous span of work going on in the council, pretty typical of the last 2 years. The community and corporate plan review, much of which I've already covered. It is, however, necessary in any organisation to have deliverables which are articulated and known to the organisation. This is a very detailed plan which is being rolled out organisational with performance targets for each and every member of staff. KPIs have been developed and are being honed. The Housing Strategy 2020 to 2024, which is designed to address and understand our housing needs, support our vulnerable residents through a range of housing options, improve the quality, sustainability and management of the borough's homes, and to enrich our people's lives. It is a key parameter of our poverty strategy, but also a driver of the local plan update expected later in this year. The draft leisure strategy, the borough's current leisure strategy, focused on sports provision, and in particular, the council's own leisure services. This new draft strategy broadens its scope to incorporate the many opportunities provided by the extensive and growing network of high-quality open spaces, embracing country parks, new greenways, linking our strategic development locations, children's play and encouraging active travel. It is a key contributor of being the healthiest place to live. That accolade did not come by accident. Arts and culture strategy. I'm delighted to see this coming forward, and thank you to Charlotte. I made a promise to Robin Copps. In the context of a growing population and the borough's reputation as an excellent place to live with a high quality of life, the quality of the cultural offer will play a significant role in enhancing the borough's reputation and enriching the lives of residents, building from a strong base of events and activities. The strategy seeks to further develop the cultural offer and extend the many associated social and economic benefits. Delivering the Housing 145 plus 100 strategy. The Housing 145 challenge aims to deliver 1,000 additional homes led by the council over a 4-year period, providing an average of 5% return to the council. The recent plus 100 in addition reflects an additional challenge identified as part of the current work around developing a robust new local plan. The council is looking to lead on the development of additional approximately 100 new homes a year, predominantly on brownfield sites. The pandemic is predicted to have a significant and long-lasting negative impact on the economy. These impacts will include increased unemployment and a challenging job market. Woking Borough does not have any DWP Job Centre Plus presence, with residents having to travel to Reading or Bracknell to access support. This paper approves in principle the establishment of our employment hub. Home to School Transport provides members with an overview of the key outcomes from the public consultation and seeks agreement to amend the current Home to School Transport appeals process to ensure it is compliant with national regulations. Woking with school arrangements, Woking Borough Council has statutory responsibility for admissions to mainstream publicly funded schools, academies, free schools and maintained schools in the Woking Borough area. The council is the admissions authority for community and voluntary controlled schools in its area. Academies, free schools and voluntary aided schools are the admissions authorities in their own right. Admissions authorities set the admission arrangements, including oversubscription criteria, and are responsible for managing appeals and mid-year applications. We will revisit this in the new year. COVID winter grant scheme supplementary estimates. This report seeks a supplementary estimate of up to £100,000 to continue to support vulnerable families and individuals who are struggling to meet the costs of food and utilities over the winter months due to the COVID pandemic, supplementing the funds provided through the DWP winter grant. The DWP grants allocated to Woking £281,000. The supplementary estimate, if fully spent, will bring the total on supporting families and individuals over the winter months to £381,000. This is the Council and this administration looking to the future to protect and defend our residents whilst enhancing the quality of life. Lastly, I would like to thank my very hard-working executive, particularly John, my indispensable and reliable deputy. I could not wish for better. Thank you all for your support in what has been a very challenging times. In particular, Charlotte, who will certainly not be here in May. I thank you, Charlotte, for all your work over many years in children's services as a leader and latterly in regeneration and the arts and culture strategy. It is a great compliment to you that the Woking Town Centre is as vibrant and resilient as it is. This is a great borough, the healthiest and one of the most desirable. We wish to make it even greater. We did not get here by accident. Remember, the administration has delivered in the past, been solid in the pandemic, and has a great plan for the future. Why would you risk it? Thank you very much, and thank you for your attention. So, coming to back to the agenda, minutes. If everybody's read the minutes, do they have any comments, or can I accept them as read? Could you vote on the minutes? Somebody propose them, please. Pauline, propose them, please. And John, would you second that? Could you vote in favour of them, please? Thank you. That's unanimously carried. Declarations of interest. I believe that John and Ulrikarin have to declare their interests.
Yeah, I'd like to declare an interest that I'm a director of Woking Borough housing company, so I'll be talking about that later on. So I'd like to declare that interest. Thank you.
And I am a non-executive director of Lord & Homes, so I too declare an interest in agenda item 108.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest?
John, I have to declare an interest in the arts and culture strategy as I am an unpaid trustee of Woking and More Arts.
Okay.
I will not be voting on that agenda item, but I would like to speak on it if allowed.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much. And now we come to public question time. Wesley Budd, would you appear and ask your question of Pauline, please?
Yes. Hi, John. Hi, Pauline.
Hi.
You're well. Yes, my question to you is, for years, many early residents have raised concerns about speeding along Red Hatch Drive. The road and neighbourhood design contribute to drivers regularly travelling in excess of 35 miles per hour on this road with its 30 mile per hour speed limit. Despite good visibility displays, the speed with which many vehicles travel make this very dangerous for vehicles entering from side streets. The Beach Lane end in particular is used by many school children. Many of the elderly residents living in Red Hatch Drive and neighbouring roads finding it difficult as pedestrians or drivers themselves to accurately judge the speed of fast approaching vehicles. Early Town Council submission on the 22nd of July 2020 to a WBC speed limit consultation recommended with regards to Red Hatch Drive to retain the current 30 mile per hour speed limit but install appropriate VAS signage. Additional speed limit signage at the Elm Lane and Beach Lane ends of Red Hatch Drive. Request WBC Highways engineers investigate possibilities for traffic calming measures such as chicanes and rumble strips. Will the executive member for Highways support Early Town Council's recommendations for Red Hatch Drive?
Thank you, Wes. Good to see you.
Yes.
Glad you didn't get run over taking your pictures earlier. The council's aware of 2 requests raised by residents of Red Hatch Drive about traffic speeds and a submission from Early Town Council as part of the borough-wide speed limit review in 2020. And I've also seen one recently from the Town Council as a result of our speed limit consultations. We acknowledge the road safety concerns of residents and school children in particular using this road. Despite common perceptions, the road has actually got a very good safety record, with 1 personal injury collision recorded by the police over the past 10 years. Whilst the council's speed limit review has still to be concluded, I'm able to confirm that the speed data we recorded for Red Hatch Drive indicates the average vehicle speeds upon which speed limits are based are broadly compliant with the existing 30-mile-an-hour speed limit during peak, off-peak hours on all days across the week. However, in the section between Witchwood Crescent and Collins Drive, 85th percentile speeds are in excess of the level normally used by Thames Valley Police for speed enforcement purposes, and the likelihood of speeds higher than this occurring at times is acknowledged. As a result, I'm able to confirm that officers have already added Red Hatch Drive to the council's programme for temporary VAS signs and regular monitoring by the council's road safety dashboard. In the event recorded speeds remain unchanged as a result of the VAS sign and or any deterioration is identified in current safety record, we'll investigate concerns for speed management measures appropriate to the residential environment, and will consult with the residents, town council and elected members.
Have you a supplementary, Wesley?
Not specifically, but just it'd be interesting to know what the next updates would be.
Yeah. What you mean the next updates in terms of what we might do?
Yes.
I think I know that certainly I think we've got a couple of problems with this road. The design of it means that it's very straight, and therefore it's easy to speed on it. I think we would struggle with rumble strips because, as you've seen with the speed limit humps in Beach Lane, they cause a lot of noise to the residents that live by them, and also they cause, if we put humps in, they cause vibrations. So for every resident that thinks they're a great idea, there's another one who thinks they're terrible, and it actually increases the noise in people's houses. So rumble strips and speed humps are probably not likely. And my experience with chicanes, which we've seen on Rushy Way, is that what they are essentially is a challenge to people to zigzag around them if you get them at the wrong distance. So what happens is people, especially when the road's quiet, drive really fast and take it as a challenge to see if they can slalom around them. And also with the ones in opposite Hillside School, the reason we reduced them it reduced the distance between them is because you can actually build up quite a lot of speed between them. So I'm not entirely convinced either chicanes or rumble strips or humps would help. I think they might make it worse, but we'll certainly keep monitoring it and we'll look at it again. And we'll certainly put a VAS in. Okay.
Thanks.
Hope that helps. That answers the question.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Mike Smith.
Good evening, John.
Good evening. Wayne Smith.
Good evening. This month, a very large oak tree had to be felled in early to help prevent further structural damage to a number of properties, some of which were quite some distance from the tree. Obviously, the damage is very distressing to the homeowners, but it's the loss of the trees is equally distressing to other residents. And this is not an isolated case. There's another application currently under consideration. Obviously, these trees have a very long-ranging impacts stretching decades into the future and can affect many properties a long way away. Their preservation is important from a climate emergency point of view, not the least from their role in sequestering carbon, but as well as aesthetics. One possible way to reduce the need to fell large mature trees might be a change of planning policy whereby the impact of the trees on or adjacent to planning applications are given more consideration in depth where appropriate, perhaps something like a BAT survey for trees. Can the Executive Member for Planning please consider this or look at other ways to help mitigate the need to repeatedly fell mature and veteran trees?
Good evening, Mike. Good evening. There has been a number of subsidence cases in relation to mature trees within close proximities to properties over the last year. Felling of a mature tree due to subsidence is always a last resort and will only be allowed if there is no suitable measure that can be implemented to protect both the tree and the property. A number of procedures are in place to ensure that the current and future planning applications carefully consider the proximity of new housing to existing trees. The Trees and Landscapes team review planning applications and consider how the development would impact on any trees where necessary. The team will serve TPOs on valuable trees that are at the risk of felling. Developers are required to submit a tree survey, an arboricultural impact assessment as part of their planning application in order to comply with the current policy, which is CC03. Where a tree is on a protected basis or site by a TPO, the applicant will also be required to submit an arboricultural method statement so that the trees and the landscape team can be certain that the development or extension can be constructed without harm to the tree. If it is considered that the proposal will cause harm to a TPO tree and no technical solution will be acceptable, the application will be recommended for refusal. Furthermore, the most recent draft local plan that we put out for consultation in February last year included new text within the policy NE4 relating to the predicted growth of trees when assessing the layout of new development sites. This will help to ensure new developments provide sufficient space to enable trees to grow and thrive, which is one of the main reasons why we're having the problem with subsidence.
You have a supplementary, Mike?
I do, yes. Thank you for your answer, Councillor Smith. We do need to urgently ensure we do protect trees in the borough, so it's good to hear about new developments. But of course, it's also people sticking up inappropriate extensions near trees that seems to be an issue. An example of a failure, I think, is the felling of 450 trees over at the Bearwood estate on the grounds that they were an immediate health and safety risk. I think I'm right in saying that the application was submitted urgently and that it was granted on the grounds of an immediate risk, but it took them over a month to even start work. It's difficult to believe that all 450 trees presented an immediate risk, given that they cover such a significant area.
It's a question, not a speech.
Okay, I understand that. And it's odd that the 2005 and 15 statutory inspection did mention it. So, one of your colleagues was quoted in the press as saying the council is working to ensure only the required removals have taken place. That presumably means an inspection has taken place or an investigation. So what is the results of that investigation and what is going to be done to replace the tragic loss?
It certainly wasn't me that you're referring to who made that statement.
No, it was Councillor Parry Bath.
Okay, so what I would do is I will contact the trees team tomorrow and Parry and come back to you with an answer to your question. If that's okay.
Yes, that'd be fine. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
Eileen Kessel, questions, Pauline.
Hi, it's Eileen here. I am aware that residents are currently experiencing real issues with inconsiderate parking on Mill Lane, caused by motorists picking up children at Hawkden School. Could the Executive Member for Highways and Transport set out what steps the Council can take to tackle this problem for the people living in the area?
Thank you for your question, Eileen. We acknowledge the concerns of residents living close to schools where inconsiderate parking and road use by parents causes access and safety issues. To deter this, we work with as many schools as we can to ensure their travel plans are set out the most appropriate ways for parents to bring their children from school. And we will back this up by localised traffic measures, especially to assist those walking and cycling from short distances away where possible. Where parking restrictions already exist, such as school clear markings and yellow lines, we will target non-compliance using civil parking enforcement powers, and we do move the parking enforcement around schools quite regularly. In response to requests from schools or residents living nearby, however, when residents feel that there are problems in unrestricted roads that require firmer controls, they can request these through the Council's website, and officers will investigate the potential for using traffic regulation orders that can be enforced under CPE legislation. which in real terms means probably a single yellow line. We're mindful, however, that these types of measures can simply result in a transfer of the problems to other streets, and for this reason, any proposals are subject to formal consultation, allowing any objections to be considered. As a result, the process is very lengthy and can take between 10 and 12 months to complete. In the case of the parking in Hawkton School that you've mentioned, or the parking up Mill Lane, I've arranged for the highways enforcement people to go and have a look at what was going on there once I'd received your question, and they actually moved on 2 people who were parked on the single yellow lines, and I've asked them to go back again and make sure that they continue to do this to reinforce the fact that parking on those lines is not acceptable. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Pauline.
Have you got a supplementary, Anne?
Supplementary.
No, I don't. No, that's fine. Thank you, Pauline.
Thanks. Okay.
Norman, question to Parry.
Hello. Hi.
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Your camera's off.
Hi, Parry. There are several areas of Wilderness Road and Airlie which were plagued with flooding at times of heavy rain. Sorry?
Norman, camera's off.
My camera's off. Telling me at this end that it's on. Let me see. It's still working. I'm sorry, I can't switch it on. It seems to be an electronic problem. Can you hear me? Okay, just to check.
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. So let me start again with the question. Several areas of Wilderness Road and Airlie were plagued with flooding at times of heavy rain, and Woking Borough Council repaired sections of drains around Betchworth Avenue a couple of years ago. Residents at the Pepper Lane end of Wilderness Road still experience flooding, and the council were investigating the reasons for this with the intention of fixing it. Please will you tell me how this is progressing?
Norman, good evening, and thank you for your question. Lovely to hear from you. Council officers have been working extremely hard to resolve the flooding issues on this site, and I've been keen to work with the team to resolve the issues to benefit our residents locally. Following on from the work completed on Wilderness Road to resolve surface water flooding between junctions of Betchworth Avenue and Hartsbourne Road, the drainage team have also been investigating flooding issues at the junction with the Pepper Lane. Investigation works identified a problem with the pipework that runs from the roundabout with Pepper Lane westwards towards Reeds Avenue. Pipe repairs and cleansing works have largely resolved the issues at this location. The drainage team have programmed a final pipe cleanse and CCTV survey of the system to ensure that the repair works have resolved all of the issues. These works are due to take place, to be completed in early April. I'm therefore confident that the flooding issues on this site have been resolved and the flooding issues will not trouble our residents going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I don't have a supplementary, but I would just like to thank the officers for carrying out that work and their persistence in finding the issues. It's taken quite some effort to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Daniel Hinton, question to
me. Wayne. Good evening, Wayne.
Evening.
Can you please update me on the council's progress on working with the government to ensure the borough has the right number of homes in the right places?
Yes. Thank you, Daniel, for your question. As you know, last summer the government consulted on a controversial changes to the way a council's minimum housing need was calculated. In our case, the changes would have seen the need for the borough to more than double to over 1,600 homes a year. Wokingham Borough Council was the first in line against the proposal, and as a council we submitted the strongest possible objections as well as highlighting flaws in the approach. Councillor Halsall, the leader of the council, took a lead nationally on the issue, engaging with other council leaders across England to share our concerns and encourages others to do similar. When the proposals were debated in Parliament, Wokingham Borough MPs, including Theresa May, James Sunderland and Matt Rodder, joined others in strongly opposing the proposals. I am delighted to confirm that thanks to Wokingham's lobbying, the Secretary of State and the Minister of Housing and Local Government, Robert Jenrick, announced in December that the government had decided not to follow through on the proposals, but instead continue with the approach with additional focus on building in London and 9 other areas and towns. This is great news for Wokingham. Whilst the minimum housing need remains challenging at between 700 to 800 homes a year, the threat of significantly increasing the numbers has been removed. The Housing Strategy and Action Plan highlights the ongoing work developing a revised draft Wokingham Local Plan update that needs to provide us with the required numbers on the lifetime of the plan, whilst maintaining that ever-important 5-year land supply. I hope to bring forward a second draft plan in the early autumn. Fundamental to the success of that will be the overall housing strategy remains that new housing delivery in the borough is planned and built in sustainable locations through sustainable methods. It should address local housing priorities and can be occupied by essential infrastructure to support it. We believe the council itself can play a vital part in the delivery, setting the standard in terms of design, sustainability, affordability and livability. As such, my colleague John Kaiser, Councillor Kaiser, has set the Housing 145 challenge for the council to lead on the development of 1,000 homes, council homes, over the next 4 years, providing an overall return of 5%. In addition, I have requested that the teams identify a further 100 new homes per year on brownfield site to meet the government's requirements, and that is ongoing. I am pleased to say that we have already the potential of a forward programme of over 1,500 new council homes, with a substantial proportion of the affordables delivered through either the housing revenue account or the growing housing companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Complimentary, Daniel.
No, just to say thank you very much to Wayne and yourself, John, and everyone else who fought against these housing numbers. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Daniel.
Anne and Chadwick, question to Charlotte.
Oh, hello. Yes, my question is relating to the Community Vision and Corporate Plan Review. I'm delighted that the council, as part of its corporate plan, is investing in Woodley and other parts of the borough. Does the executive member agree with me that building on the success of Wokingham's regeneration to fund investment in the rest of the borough is good news for Woodley?
Thanks, Anne, very much for your question. In short, absolutely yes. It's incredibly important that we help our towns and villages to have a vibrant future. By creating and nurturing locally the right conditions for economic prosperity and growth, we can make sure that residents can access the opportunities, jobs and facilities that they need in and around the borough. This remains an important part of our shared community vision. The regeneration of Wokingham Town Centre is proving a great success for all of our local residents. The new shops and businesses are generating an income of over £2 million a year, and this will rise to hopefully over £6 million a year as the costs of building are paid off. This is income that can be used to fund projects and services for residents right across the borough and yes, in Woodley too. It's the extra income from projects like the regeneration of Wokingham Town Centre or the Property Investment Fund, which allows us to continue to make improvements for our local libraries or to fund services like social care when so many other councils are paring back on services or even shutting them down. And I take, for instance, Reading next door with the closure of swimming pools and leisure facilities. Our approach has been very different, and I very much hope that you will have already benefited from the investment in Woodley's new leisure facilities at Bullmush, which have included a much bigger gym and swimming pool. The regeneration has also brought about wider benefits for residents. The council has built up an experienced investment and development team in-house, and their skill set has been used to make sure that the council's investment strategy is rolled out not just with an eye to securing income, but also with this strategic vision for the future, especially in regards to supporting our towns and villages and longer term ambitions for wider regeneration. A good example of this is the recent purchase of Woodley's Waitrose. In addition to this being a great business and financial investment, it also has secured an important site right in the heart of the town centre.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have you got her supplementary?
No, I don't actually, no.
Thanks, Anne.
Phil Cunnington to ask a question, Charles Magetz.
Good evening, Charles.
Evening.
I understand that sports and leisure staff are helping with the COVID recovery plan. Can you tell me how they are helping people get over the effects of the COVID pandemic?
Sure. Well, this is one part of our COVID recovery plan. And this is part that is called Moving with Confidence. And it's very much the awareness that during COVID, many residents had to shield in their own homes. And this has led to a loss of confidence, fitness and mobility. And I'm sure, you know, in my family, I know people who had that experience, and I'm sure many others have too. This has had a major impact on their well-being, putting them at the risk of falls, social isolation and deteriorating health. We've therefore started the Moving with Confidence project with the Council Sport and Leisure staff. This scheme takes referrals from across the system, adult social care, the voluntary sector, one front door, immediate care team and general practice, specially trained coaches to deliver one-to-one sessions with residents in their own homes, working through mobility exercises and building confidence. Already we've had 127 referrals, initially from the WP Supported Friendship Alliance. Towards the end of the sessions, up to 6 clients will be encouraged to join group-based activities for those who are frail, who have long-term conditions. The scheme is linked to the Community Navigation Service, and clients will be invited to a session with the navigator to see how else they can be supported in terms of social activities and other practical issues. As I said at the start, this is part of the COVID recovery plan, which includes the mental health service with Mind, which is meant to start open next month, which will serve up to 1,200 clients when fully open across the borough. From Wokingham Town Centre and with our GPs, our expansion of our lateral flow testing, which now includes a mobile service, which is initially based at Asda in Early and Aldi in Wokingham, and various other measures basically to try and around, support for our residents as we move hopefully towards the end of the pandemic.
Charles, you might find it better to turn your camera off. You're pixelating today.
No problem.
Have you got a supplementary, Phil?
Actually, no, but I do think that it's worth noting the incredible quality of the work that Charles and the rest of the COVID team within WBC have carried out during this pandemic, and I would like to thank them.
Well, thank
you very much.
That's the end of the public questions. There's a one-member question, Pauline, to Gregor. It's actually Pauline Jorgensen. Oh, did you have a question, Pauline?
Leisure time, outside, enjoying nature in the many parks and woods. I know that laying our new accessible woodland will be a priority as part of the Council's tree planting initiatives. Following the announcement of the 300,000 grant for tree planting negotiated by Conservative councillors from the Woodland Trust, can you confirm to me that any trees planted using this money will be maintained and looked after properly, not just planted and allowed to fend for themselves?
Thank you for your question, Pauline. As you rightly say, Wokingham Borough Council recently successfully bid for grant funding from the Woodland Trust Emergency Tree Fund. We're one of only 10 councils around the country to receive this funding, and we've been awarded a grant of £300,000. The Woodland Trust recently announced an ambitious plan to establish 50 million more trees across Britain by 2025, and we're very proud to have become one of the first phase partners with them in achieving their and our ambitious climate plans. An additional benefit for Woking Borough is that the funding brings with it the invaluable advice and support of experts in conservation and large-scale tree planning. The ongoing maintenance of trees is a concern that is raised by residents with both Councillor Bath and myself on a regular basis, and is something that we specifically had to address as part of our bid with the Woodland Trust. We were able to demonstrate that our overall budget for the 250,000 trees included money both for planting and for their ongoing maintenance. In addition to this, going forward, we will have 2 additional dedicated tree officers specifically responsible for carrying out inspections and maintenance works for these and for the stock of other council-owned trees. It's important to stress here that this grant award wasn't the work of a few weeks. Councillor Hansel and I met with the Woodland Trust shortly after Woking Borough declared climate emergency in 2019. Since then, as a council, we've opened up a number of very productive conversations with the Woodland Trust around our vision, around the types of trees we should be planting across the borough and where we should be planting them, around our garden forest project, all of which resulted in Woking being invited to bid for funding as part of the Emergency Tree Fund. I stress this because I've seen today that members of the opposition have tried to ferret some of the credit for this relationship and bask in the reflected glow of what is a great achievement for Woking's residents and for the officers of our council. With that said, this funding not only helps to kickstart our tree planting programme, but shows that the Woodland Trust believes in both our planting programme and also in our future maintenance plan. And I'm very proud to say that I've played a part in making it happen.
Do you have a supplementary, Pauline?
Yes, I do, thank you. Are there any plans for community engagement on where they will be planted? Will residents be able to make suggestions, and will we engage with schools, youth groups and parish and town councils? And how will they feed their ideas in?
It's another great question, Pauline. So, yes, there is plans for engagement around it. I spoke about the Garden Trees project already, or the Garden Forest project already. That's our plan to put 10,000 trees into the homes, gardens of our residents. And to hopefully give them an option of which type of trees they'll be able to choose from. And we're doing that because we know it's a great way to make sure that those trees are maintained. Supplementary to that, the Council Climate Emergency Team have begun what we call drop-in sessions with all of the town councils around Woking Borough, and where we educate them on the different projects that are going on. And there's already been a drop-in session on trees, where the town councils were invited to come along, listen to our plans for planting the 250,000 trees, and input their thoughts and feedback in terms of the areas where those trees could be planted. Some of the bigger planting projects, we've already identified space for where they're going to be. But for the smaller scale plantings, the sort of 1,000 to 5,000 tree size projects, we don't know quite yet where they're going to be, but we're inviting all sorts of feedback in terms of where they could be from anybody that wants to tell us.
Thank you.
Information, Chairman. When Gregor says town councils, does he also include parish councils?
Yes, I do. So the towns and parish councils are all invited to those drop-in sessions. Whether they choose to attend or not, that's their choice. But they're all invited to come along and listen to what the officers are working on, feed in their thoughts and ideas and understand what it means specifically for them.
Thank you. My parish council was asking that.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Now we come to the business items. And the first business item is the strategic plan, which I believe is me. Let me find it. I think I've covered the main parts of the strategic plan in my preliminary remarks. So we are into page 29. The corporate vision and corporate plan and delivery review, and it's really a refresh of what we had last year. There's no big changes other than the addition of KPIs. Is this still a poor voice, John?
No, it's clearing, but it comes and goes, John.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what I can do other than turn my camera off, I guess. So I'll do that. And much of it I've covered in my preliminary remarks, but the recommendation is to note the challenges and opportunities that have arisen over the course of the year, and endorse the recommendations. The community vision and corporate delivery plan remains appropriate and relevant. Any questions? Any questions? No? So could I have a vote on that? Those in favour? So it's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. So coming back to the next agenda item, then we have the housing strategy, which is you, John.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be presenting the borough's housing strategy to the executive tonight. Housing is something that's very close to my heart, and everybody has a backstory. Having been born in the early 50s to an extended family, I lived with 4 other families, all related, in one house for the first 3 years of my life, with my parents on the council waiting list, waiting for a home. It wasn't until my sister was born that they got a 2-bedroom flat, and I didn't really understand the impact that had on my parents. But over the years, I saw my aunts and uncles also given the opportunity of having their own homes in which to bring up my cousins. It was not unusual, especially in London at that time, and many lived in poor and overcrowded conditions, but decent housing changed the lives of these families forever. Forwarding on nearly 70 years to Wokingham, it is a different world, where it's no longer common for people to live in those conditions. In fact, quite the opposite. We have driven the number of homeless down in the borough, and we have no rough sleepers of choice. Our housing waiting list is low, with the number of people with real need being matched by the number of affordable homes we have built over the last few years. We have also developed the housing company who deliver affordable homes across the borough, and are engaged currently in their most ambitious project to date to deliver the £100 million scheme, which is Gorse Ride. And on top of it, our housing companies have made a profit rather than cost the council money, all of which can be reinvested back into services in the council. Good quality homes give more to residents than somewhere to live. It creates an environment to bring up and educate their children and brings stability to their lives and helps to avoid poverty. I also wanted to talk about the impact that COVID has had over the last 12 months. And although it's referenced in the paper, in reality, it's difficult to ascertain the long-term problems that it may leave us with. But rest assured, we're dealing with the short-term issues as they arise. So hopefully, we should help residents avoid any long-term impacts. I will continue to work with my colleagues and staff of the council to eradicate true homelessness in the borough and to look to improve the lifestyles for those most vulnerable. This includes other areas such as extending council tax discounts. As I say, we have no rough sleepers by choice, and it should be beholden on all of us to ensure that that continues. The policy of this administration is not just to ensure people have somewhere to live, but somewhere where, but it's somewhere which should reflect the fact that they're living in Wokingham, one of the best areas and healthiest areas in the UK. And an indication of that, I was about to announce tonight that we had 99.99% of our homes meeting, our social homes meeting decent standards. Unfortunately, I can't say that because I was told by officers today the 9 remaining houses are now being brought up to decent standards. So yes, 100% of the homes that we own in this borough now meet decent standards. I mean, poverty and inequality have no place in this borough, and that's all. And wherever we find it, we should try and eradicate it. Facts and figures bandied about showing how well councils cope with housing issues, but even one person homeless is one person too many. And if you're homeless, you're 100% homeless. The politicising of poverty does nothing to solve it, and yes, there will always be somebody who needs help, and it should be our objective to recognise that need and ensure that we all have an objective, which is to work towards eradicating that need, especially in these complex and difficult times. I recommend this paper to you. It's been a long time coming, but it's well worth a read. Thank you very much. I'll answer any questions.
John, I have to say that that's one of the most moving speeches I've heard in this council, and I commend you for it.
Thank you.
Could you just explain how we are doing with Course Ride and where we are?
Yeah, we're now on phase 2 of Course Ride. Any development such as this is very complicated, as you can probably, and that's probably one of the reasons it hasn't been tackled in the past. It involves decanting 160 families from their homes, putting them in other homes. Some of those families will want to come back to new homes, and some of those families will want to go and live somewhere else in the borough. So it's extremely complicated. But we intend it to be a flagship development, which will offer homes to 206 people in the borough. And we're on target to deliver it. In fact, we're hoping to reduce the lead-in time. We have now appointed, as I say, we've appointed the contractors, and we hope by moving the decant forward that we can accelerate the time so people can get back on. The ones who want to get back onto the estate can come back, and those who wish to live elsewhere in the borough will be accommodated. So yes, it's all on target currently.
And can you tell me how many homeless we have and what the situation is?
Yeah, the homelessness it moves every day. I mean, we've always got people presenting themselves, and we're a bit concerned about what the impact of COVID will have. As I say, we're dealing with it as quickly as we possibly can. 3 measures of homelessness is always difficult to measure in the round, purely and simply because if you're a surfer living with a friend, are you homeless? If you're living with your mum and dad but you'd like a house, are you homeless? But true homelessness in this borough is at a very, very low level. That are the people that actually are on the streets or would be on the streets if it wasn't for the council giving them somewhere to live.
And how many rough sleepers have we got at the moment?
Well, the number of rough sleepers that I believe that we've got one. Occasionally, another one will turn up, but we have one who resists coming off the street. But that is faced with an awful lot of challenges because they come with a lot of baggage, rough sleepers. Some of them drugs, some of them with vulnerable mental problems and drink. And of course, what we can't do is we can't just bang them into some community and disrupt that community. So we're working with a charity called Two Saints, who are specialists in rehousing homeless people, and that's going extremely well. So and we intend to do that, and the government's been quite generous in its grants, and we intend to continue applying as the grants come forward so we can keep this up. Nobody should be on the streets of Wokingham.
Thank you.
Stuart.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. John, just one quick question from me. I'm going to be talking later about the unemployment situation, which I think there's a serious sort of fallout that's occurred from the pandemic, as we know already, hence the need for doing some business support. But when the end of the furlough systems finish and the grants finish, there might be some more pressure on housing need. Is there any, I know we can't measure it, but have we got any plan to sort of pick that up?
Well, there is actually a team in the council that have been sitting around talking about this. Basically, we are increasing the number of decent temporary homes that we get. We're building some in Grovelands, replacing some of the old caravans that weren't really fit for purpose, mobile homes. So we are expecting to see an increase in the number, and of course it's always difficult. Priority will be children, people with children, and we will try to keep those people very much in the borough. In the past, over the past few years, there's been a tendency to send people out of borough, but we work really hard to have these temporary homes that we can actually house people in, because it means the kids can still go to school, the parents can still work, and you don't get that level of disruption. So we're currently working on how we can continue to do that. There are options to us. Some of those options may involve some of the property that we own, which isn't actually dedicated to social housing currently, that we may use on a temporary basis. So yes, Stuart, we're fully aware of what's going on, and we think that we can meet that challenge.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have any strategies to allow first-time buyers to buy in Woking?
Well, I think one of the issues that we need to look into, we are building affordable homes, and those affordable homes actually are offered as part buy, part rental. But one of the things I'd like to explore once we're a bit more out of the pandemic is whether or not we as a council could facilitate loans to enable people to purchase their houses.
Thank you. Any other questions from the executive? So the recommendation is to approve this paper. Those in favour? Thank you. I think that's unanimous. So draft leisure strategy, Perry.
Thank you, John. Good evening. I'm very pleased to present the leisure strategy within the borough, Mr. Chairman. We are committed to supporting and improving the health and well-being of our residents. The leisure strategy is a clear demonstration of our dedication to provide the best leisure provisions and outdoor spaces for all of our residents, making Woking Borough the healthiest place to live in the country. The strategy sets out plans to support residents' physical and emotional well-being through the council's own leisure offering and through effective partnership with a wide range of other organisations. This includes proposals to establish a new active Wokingham partnership to support collective efforts to ensure that high quality facilities and opportunities remain affordable, accessible and sustainable. Wokingham recently topped national polls, as you've already mentioned, Mr. Chairman, and was named the healthiest place to live. As the borough's population grows, the council wants to ensure the leisure offer can play a significant role in enhancing well-being and enriching the lives of our residents. This includes informal leisure opportunities across a wide range of high-quality open spaces and active travel, as well as more formal sports and leisure facilities. The proposed strategy will build on the Council's existing leisure projects with more than £50 million invested or committed, and these include Bulmesh Leisure Centre already completed £14.5 million, Raish Green and Arborfield leisure facilities already completed £4.9 million, parking and toilet facilities at California Park all completed, that's just over 2 million. The Loddon Valley Leisure Centre completed already 2.2 million. Embrook 3G football pitch completed £800,000. Cantley Park Greenway enhancements £320,000. Carnival Pool Leisure Centre, which will be has been named the Carnival Hub, the Carnival Pool or the Hub. It will cost 23 million, and it's almost underway to be completed. Cantley Park enhancements, another £2.5 million. Dinton Park Country Park Activity Centre, £2.4 million. Arborfield Primary School 3G football pitch, another £800,000. So that's a significant investment, Mr. Chairman. I would now therefore like to move on to the recommendations, Mr. Chairman, that the Executive endorses the principles and contents of this leisure strategy. It approves the draft strategy for consultation with residents and stakeholders, agrees to consider the results of the consultation and any resulting changes to the draft strategy at a future meeting of the Executive. Finally, to note that an initial action plan for implementing the strategy will be presented alongside the consultation feedback to the Executive in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy to take any questions.
Wayne, far away.
Good evening, Parry.
Good evening, Wayne.
Well done for bringing this draft strategy to the Executive. It's timely and appropriate to meet health and wellbeing needs of our residents. And I was only down at Dinton just over a week ago with Tanya, looking at progress down there, because it's really exciting. I know I'm being selfish, but that happens to be in my ward, and I'm very proud of what we've got going on at Dinton. But my question relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. In your opinion, your personal opinion, how important is access to health and leisure facilities to our residents?
Wayne, thank you for the question. The COVID-19 pandemic has showcased just how important access to health and leisure facilities is to our residents across the borough. And that's why we're now going out to consultation, and we look forward to listening to our residents about what services would best support their well-being and building that into our strategy through a well-prepared action plan going forward. So very, very important that access you mentioned is very important, and the pandemic has actually demonstrated the need for that.
And I think it's important, Parry, that list that you just read out covers the whole borough, and it's just not one area in the borough. And I think it's important that residents can see that, because as we start to come out of this pandemic, people are going to start to use our facilities. Now that they've got used to our facilities, in some cases more through the pandemic, and as we emerge out of the pandemic, I think they will be used even more. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
John?
Yes, thank you very much. Parry, this is an excellent leisure strategy. I mean, it reflects the vast investment to the benefit of residents' health and well-being. So well done, and thank you for bringing it to the Executive to seek approval for its consultation. But I do have a question, Parry. I mean, it relates to the action plan. There doesn't seem to be an action plan to be available to the Executive tonight. And why is that?
Thank you for your question, John. It's an excellent question. And of course, this action plan will be developed once we have had responses from the wider public to our consultation, and we can build our action plan around the consultation that we receive. and it would make more sense to develop the plan, the action plan, to suit our residents' needs. After all, we are putting forward this strategy to benefit our residents, and we are here purely to serve our residents, and we will build that action plan around the needs of our residents, which we will do when we get all the feedback in, and that will be presented at the next executive when we finish the consultation, receive all the feedback. So it will be presented.
Thank you, Perry.
Harry,
sir,
how do you think that our leisure strategy has impacted on being the healthiest borough in the country?
I think, John, it's there for everyone to see. The residents' age profile reflects that. We are living longer and longer, and that's because we think that our leisure services that we offer to our residents help them with their health and well-being, and that's why we are now voted to be the healthiest place in the UK.
Thank you. Could I ask executive members to approve the recommendation? The recommendation is it endorses the principles and content of the draft leisure strategy, approves the draft strategy of consultation with the residents and stakeholders, agrees to consider the results of the consultation and any resulting changes to the strategy, notes the initial action plan for implementation alongside the consultation feedback to the executive. Thank you. I think it's all approved. Thank you, Perry.
Thank you.
So we now move into the next paper as I page through it, which is the Arts and Culture Strategy, Charlotte.
That's me. Thank you very much, John. I'm really excited.
And thank you for doing this because it fulfills a promise that I made to Robin Copps.
No worries. I'm absolutely delighted to be bringing this tonight. The council has not ever had, as far as I'm aware, an arts and cultural strategy. So I'm really privileged to be able to bring this for ratification tonight. It was first drafted right in the middle of COVID, and it's just really brought about how important it is to have an arts and cultural strategy, as I think all of us are probably missing out on that element of our lives, as well as many other things, and have realised just how important it is to our health and well-being at the moment. A big catalyst really for doing this was when we went out to speak to our businesses a few years ago. We had started some big conversations with them around our Fit for Business engagement meetings. And many of them were telling us at that time that one of the reasons why some of their employees had started work with them but had left after maybe initial 2 or 3 years was that they were moving out of the borough and going on to other places such as London, Bath, Bristol and places like that, was because whilst they recognised that we did have lots going on in the borough around culture and arts, it wasn't very joined up, but also some of the other places such as the ones that I've named had a better offer, and also it was definitely much more joined up, and they were easier to access, the things that were much more readily available to them, and that's what particularly some of the younger generation were wanting and needing in their outside life other than work. So we started to draft together a strategy, and we took this out for consultation, and unfortunately that was in the middle of COVID, but we did get some really interesting responses, and as I said, we took that. 5 of our towns and parishes responded. We would have liked to have seen a bit more response there. Nearly 100 members of the public got back to us, and 11 arts and cultural organisations. One of the things that also I would have loved to have seen was more young people getting back to us about their views on arts and culture in the borough. And in the future, I'd like to try and reach out, well, obviously, whoever comes into this position in the future, I'd hope that they would like to reach out more and get some more views from young people, and particularly those under 18 about what they'd like to see. We also took the strategy to overview and scrutiny last month, and that received a really high amount of praise. And that's really helpful to bring it to you tonight with that backing. We also formed in October 2020 an Arts and Cultural Alliance, and this is a partnership of key stakeholders to drive forward the strategy, and also an action plan, which is really important to bring about driving forward the priorities. The partnership is built up of cross-party members and cross-departmental as well, so it's not just based in one part of the council, it talks right across the whole council. And also we've got many partners from across the borough, but also across the different sectors. So those involved with music, theatre, arts, and everything under the sun. And more partners are continuing to join us, which I'm really pleased about. And if anyone's listening tonight and is really interested and wants to get involved, then please do get in touch with Jodie Sadler, who's our officer in charge of this. I must say also tonight, I'd like to thank our officers on record about the strategy, because they've put in a huge amount of effort, and also in particular, not just our partners, but in particular Robin Cox, who's my vice chair on the subcommittee, because he's put in a tremendous amount of work. I just briefly wanted to touch on the 6 priorities this evening in the strategy, because they're really important, and I hope that we'll be able to achieve them all within the 10-year lifespan of the strategy. The first one is enhancing cultural identity and sense of place. The second is fostering social interaction and community cohesion, and that's probably going to be very important coming out of COVID. The third one, again, coming out of COVID, improving health and wellbeing will be absolutely crucial. The fourth, developing opportunities for children and young people, and I'll talk about that a little bit more just in a moment. The fifth, supporting economic growth. And the sixth, maximising opportunities and collaboration. And I think we've seen that has already started to really come to fruition just within the partnership already. The strategy is closely aligned with national best practice and Public Health England. And we hope that in future we'll be able to start attracting some grants and funding from places like Arts Council England and Heritage Lottery. We haven't been successful in the past, and I think that's largely down to the fact that we haven't got a strategy. And in order to deliver these priorities, it is absolutely essential that we get an action plan. We've already got one, which we're presenting to you tonight, but I want to emphasise that it's not just an action plan that is set in stone. It's a movable feast. It will constantly get changed as we move forward, as things come onto it and other things drop off there. But I said to you that I wanted to talk to you about children and young people, because that is one of the areas that we've already really started delivering on. And I'm pleased to say that today we have really sort of started to move along on that. So key priority number 4 in our strategy was developing arts and culture and opportunities for children and young people. And one of the action plan items on page 121 in your agenda was forming a partnership with Artsmark. And today, Artsmark is an outreach part of the Arts Council England. And today we had a meeting with Artsmark, and the Alliance, also as part of the action plan, was to form a local cultural educational partnership, which also involves Artsmark. And today, the meeting we had today was about supporting Artsmark to put together a partnership of the LSEP, the Local Educational Partnership. And local educational partnerships, there are already 13 in the South East and 99 in England already, but we don't have one in Wokingham. And there's a huge amount of support within the council to set this up right now. And this meeting this morning was very much the catalyst to do that. And Wokingham are just about to embark on some activities over the summer holidays, which include holiday activities and also around our food initiatives as well. And we've got some support to involve not only just activities around sport, but also around arts and culture as well, and tie in the work we're doing around the UNICEF's Child Friendly and City programme as well, which the UNICEF programme is about giving the voice, the children's voice as well. And I think what's really key here is that we're already seeing actions coming out of this strategy, and we will be able to make serious impacts into helping children and young people's mental health, careers and upskilling young people, particularly important in a post-COVID world. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Gregor.
Thank you. As a trustee of Woking Moor Arts, I've already said that I won't be voting on this strategy. Many within the arts are among the hardest hit by COVID, with almost all of their traditional income streams driving up in the last year. As a trustee of a charity that proudly supports and promotes the arts across Woking, I'm delighted by and fully endorse this arts and culture strategy. This is an exceptional, bold and relevant strategy that will serve to encourage and develop the arts across our borough, that will ensure and enshrine the vibrancy of our community and brings together the thoughts and views of a large number of groups, similar to ours, getting them to work together in building for the future. Woking is already considered to be one of the top 10 places to live in the UK, and this arts and culture strategy will only help us get even better. To Councillor Haytham Taylor, who spearheaded this strategy, and to the officers who passionately and diligently developed it, I say thank you, well done, and I commend you for the legacy that you've created for yourselves. This is a strategy to be rightly proud of.
Gregor, I just want to say thank you, and in particular thank you to Moor Arts as well, because they're involved as a partner, and in the future, you know, they'll have a big part to play. Thank you.
Harry.
Thank you, Chairman. Charlotte, that's absolutely wonderful news. You put together a fantastic cultural and arts and culture strategy within the borough, which was much needed, and it's going to put the borough on the cultural map, and you know, to be proud of. And what I would like to add is that the BME community within the borough have an enriched arts and culture program to offer to the borough, and to be added to the cultural programs that you offer. We have the Black History Month celebrations every October, November time. We've got the Diwali, the Festival of Lights. We've got the Eid celebrations from the Muslim community and the Vaisakhi festivals, song and dance from the Sikh community. So I would ask that these wonderful cultural and arts contributions that the BME community makes, please take them on board when you develop your programs.
Thank you, Parry. I would absolutely love to embrace all of them, and also I'd love to see more representation from the BME Forum and the whole community involved into that partnership as well. And also, I'd like to formally thank you very much indeed for getting involved in this very much at the beginning of this, and thank you for your contributions too.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
John?
Yes, thank you very much, John. I mean, we constantly talk about communities and building communities, but communities without a culture just doesn't work. I think it's really important for people's pleasure, for children's education, and not forgetting the large number of jobs that this industry, arts and culture and leisure, actually generates. I mean, we're seeing this now with the new studios that we're talking about being built in, that was approved for the planning, and I think that it's very important we don't lose sight of this, especially in these times where cash is short, money's short.
Completely agree.
Just one from me. How do you think the becoming the Hollywood of Europe will affect the culture and arts strategy?
I think it would be absolutely tremendous. We'll be right in the thick of it here, and I think it will be, you know, it will not only help arts and culture, but it will give us huge opportunities for all generations and lots of different sectors. And I spoke last night to the planning committee, and obviously whilst it's not ideal in terms of bringing forward a very short notice of a planning application of this sort of type, but you know, there are masses of opportunities that come with being, you know, the new Hollywood of the South. You know, that I think just of my daughter, you know, she's incredibly interested in technology and would love to start doing animation and things like that. You know, she's 12 years old, but already she's thinking ahead of her career and going into that sort of sector. You know, it doesn't just involve, you know, arts and culture, perhaps in the most traditional sense that we might think of. But, you know, there's many opportunities that will come with this, from set design, carpentry, all those sort of skills, right through to many other things which people wouldn't associate with a studio. And as I said last night, even skills such as accountancy will benefit. So it won't be just the arts and culture that will benefit from this.
Thank you. So the recommendation is to approve the arts and culture strategy, notes the appended action plan for implementing the strategy over the coming year, and endorses the establishment and role of the Arts and Culture Alliance as a key strategic partnership for implementing the strategy. Sorry, Ulla Kryn. Ulla Kryn, is that?
Sorry, Chairman. It's my computer. It's a bit wobbly. I meant to raise my hand, but not that quickly.
All right. Can I? Does the executive approve the recommendations? Thank you. Thank you. It's unanimous. So
thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and I'm really sorry to see that this is your last executive meeting. You will be missed.
Thank you. Well, it's a nice way to leave on. It's a nice note to leave on. Very positive.
Thank you. John, page 147, 145 and 100 challenge.
Yes, thank you very much, John. This is very, as you heard me speak earlier about the housing strategy, and my colleague Wayne talk about the 145 challenge. That is for us, this is to enable us to build our homes. As you heard, over 100% of our homes are decent, and we're probably the best custodian of our houses, so building them makes common sense. What this is, as I say, it's an enabling paper to give us put us in a position whereby we can identify land that the council own and turn that land into decent homes for people. And I'm quite happy to answer any questions on it. The recommendation is very much to delegate the authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with myself to approve the transfer of land or property to the housing companies for the purpose of providing new homes to address the agreed local housing need where appropriate, and at less than market value, in line with the General Housing Consents 2013 or the subsequent amendments, and to delegate that authority to us. It's really important that we can do this, because obviously the less time we spend playing around with administration and authorization, and the more time we spend building homes, the quicker we can get people into decent homes in this borough. So I'll answer any questions if anybody's got any.
How are you doing finding the sites?
Well, we are quite a large landowner, but of course we're very sensitive to we want to build the right homes in the right place. There is no point building 200 homes in the middle of a field, miles away from a school, miles away from shops or any facilities. So we're very much looking at where the best place to build is, and that is normally where there is already homes at the moment and the infrastructure to support it. The other important thing is obviously people travelling around. I mean, if you can walk to school or you can walk to your local shop, not always practical, I understand for some people, it will help us with our climate challenge that we have ahead of us in the council and in the world generally. So it's the right homes in the right place.
Pauline.
Thank you, John. Yeah, thanks, John. It was a really good report, this, and it shows tremendous progress. So I'm very pleased to read it. I wonder if you'd like to give us an update on what the most important, well, one of the largest things that are going on at the moment in terms of housing is Gorse Ride. I'm just wondering if you could give us a quick 2 seconds on what's going on there, because I think that's a very exciting project.
It is a very exciting project. It's a very complicated project because it means decanting 160 homeowners from their existing houses, finding somewhere for them to live, either in the short term, because an awful lot of them want to come back to Gorse Ride, and we're building 203 homes. Just a small piece of the complication. I mean, just the local school, for instance, by taking those families out of Gorse Ride for a period of time, that means that school. So we have to consider lots of things other than just knocking down the homes and rebuilding the homes. And you can understand why it hasn't happened before now. It's very complicated. Financially, we're in a position to do it. And I feel that our housing companies, now they're making a profit and they're fully integrated into the council. I think it's really important that they can deal with this at the moment.
Thanks, John. I'm really pleased to see how it's progressing. I mean, I think the first thing that was really good was the start of Phoenix, and Gorse Ride is a massive project compared to that, so well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pauline.
So, and there'll be no other questions. The recommendations are as written. As John says, it's delegating the authority to get on with it. I won't read them out because they're quite extensive. So those in favour? So that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to the next issue, the Employment Hub, which is you, Stuart, I believe.
Thank you, John. I'd just like to say before you go into this, I mean, I think it's sort of obvious to everybody that we really don't know what's going to happen when a lot of this furlough stuff and everything happens. But now is the time to support the people that already lost their jobs. And there are lots of worrying figures that are contained in this report. I mean, there's been a 227% overall increase in people claiming unemployment benefits. That's staggering. And a 312% increase in young people aged between 18 and 24. And that's in Wokingham, where a lot of the families actually usually take care of their own. We found when we were running the Elevate programme, which to look after the people, the youngsters that didn't get a job. In the over 50s, we've seen a 265% increase. So there's also been a 68% increase in young people, 16 to 18, who are not in employment or education. And now these are difficult things when you think that we haven't even got to the end of furlough and all the government support stuff that we've been able to give to businesses. So what we're going to focus on are those with low or limited skills to enable them to compete in a very competitive labour market, because it's going to be like that. Young people to meet DWP funding requirements while offering an all-age service, retaining older people to get them back into work if we can. Recruiting also, importantly, into our caring professions that support the well-being of our residents, for example, care worker training to meet the workforce needs of our care homes across the borough. Opportunities in growth sectors where there is employment demand, for example, the green economy or film production that we've heard a couple of times mentioned tonight as well. And short training opportunities for high demand employment sectors such as CS card required for working in construction sites. I mean, that's going to be important in building these things. So job matching service to meet the local employer needs. This is all very important stuff. And I think we're in the right place to do that, and we need to get on with it now. So hence the reason for this paper. But one thing, Joe, I'd like to say before I hand back to you is that the recommendation number 2 has been incorrectly articulated. It should say that it delegates the final approval of the detailed proposals to the Deputy Chief Executive and Director of Place and Growth in consultation with me. So rather than the other way around, if I could just make that point before handing it back to you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. Questions from the executive? Everybody thinks that's a very sensible thing to do. So those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, John.
need to put our hands off. Right, and moving on, then it's Ullacrin, page 159, home to school transport.
Thank you, Chairman. In May 2020, we started looking at a review of the school transport and travel assistance policies, as well as the appeals process. And we had a cross-party exercise. We spoke to key holders, including Send Voices, and we also had a public consultation between September and November last year. The paper you have in front of you is the result of the public consultation. It is a draft, and the changes to the policies will be presented at a later executive. But today I just want you to note this draft paper, and I also would like you to agree the amended appeals process. We are going to have a single officer at stage 1 and a member panel at stage 2 to replace what we have presently, which is two panels. And the reason we are changing this appeals process is that we have to be compliant with the national requirement. So I hope you are happy to accept these things.
Questions? All I can add really is that we have a lot of work to do in this area in the future. So when Ullacrin says that it has to come back, it will do, but we need to move it on with this paper today. So the recommendation is note the content of the report following the public consultation and agree the amended arrangements for appeals. So it's relatively limited in its ambition at the moment. Ullacrin, sorry.
No, I didn't mean to.
Those in favour for the recommendations, put their hands up, please.
Sorry, John.
Well, you wanted to talk on it?
Yes.
I'm getting confused as to whether they wanted to talk or putting their hands up.
It's all hands.
Yes, it is. On deck.
All I was going to say is just echo what you said, John, that this paper is very limited, and it's quite clear that we have got a lot of work to do with the way that our children are travelling to school when they can't get into the school of their choice. And we're crossing over, and our carbon footprint is increasing enormously. And we look at the way the crow flies, and we think that's the way that the children can get to their school. And when you measure it as the crow flies, it's short in distance. But actually, it requires them to go through fords and through roads that are not accessible for large percentages of the year, i.e. the ford in between Charville and Hurst, and Sandford Lane between Woodley and Hurst. So I think we have got a lot of work to do in this area. And quite frankly, I think the academy system is not fit for purpose. And I wish we could take the whole damn system back and have it in our power, because we get blamed for something that we have no control over. So I do think there is a lot of work to be done in the future.
You are absolutely right. And in respect of the academies, when Tony Blair introduced this for inner London schools in 2004, I'm sure it was the right thing for the inner London schools, but nobody thought about the rest of us in the country. So I agree with you.
No, I absolutely. I mean, it's the most stressful time in a parent's life. They live in an area and they think they're going to go into, they can go to the local school, and then you get situations like I found out today, that somebody thinks he's fourth in line for in this example the Pigott School. Somebody moves into the area last week who've just moved in from London. He's now been bumped and he's lived here all his life. It's just not, the system is not right.
and that depends on the circumstances, if it's an adopted child or looked after children, etc. There are circumstances where they would do that. So we have a lot of work in front of us because the system has to be fair.
Yeah.
And I believe we've already voted, haven't we?
Well, not yet.
Yeah.
Those who are in favour of the recommendations, put their hands up, please.
Okay, we do it again.
Thank you, that's unanimous. So moving on. Working Schools Admissions Ullacrin, 2,207, and that, my comment, we've got a lot of work to do in the future on that.
So the secondary admissions process has been completed this year in respect of entry into Wokinghams secondary schools in September 2021. This year has had its challenges as we have responded to a bulge cohort and increased numbers of Hong Kong nationals relocating to the area under the British nationals' overseas visa arrangements. The families receiving one of their four preferences is 93.51%, which compares favorably to national and regional performance, but is slightly down on our performance last year, which was 94.64%. It should be noted, though, that by National Offer Day, we had allocated 2,320 places, which is a higher number than the 2,157 allocated at the same time last year. We now continue to work on late applications and any mid-year applications to ensure that all children have a secondary school place. We are also focusing on the admissions process for primary phase education that concludes shortly. As a council, we are also working to ensure that our arrangements for supporting school admissions are reviewed, and we have therefore developed a school admissions task and finish group as part of our school forum arrangements. This group will be made up of elected members, officers and school leaders, and will explore how effective the local admission arrangements are, consider how to deal with difficult admission issues, and advise admission authorities on ways on which their arrangements can be improved. This group will enable us to consider how well existing and proposed admission arrangements serve the interests of children and their parents and schools within the area of the local authority. So, having said that, admission arrangements must be determined by February 28, the year before children are admitted to schools. So what you have in front of you today is the approval of the arrangements for next year. And I hope that you will do this because it's a statutory requirement. We have to approve of this. And then, as I said, we have started an arrangement. We've started a working group to see how we can improve the admission criteria and work closer with the schools.
Charles.
Sorry, John, hand was up by accident.
So we're talking about approving the admission criteria for 2022-23 because it has to be done a year before. So we can't get out of that. We have to approve this.
Ullacrin, could you just confirm that for academies we have no authority on their admissions procedures? That's
correct. All we do as a council, as a local authority, we act as an agent. We have no influence in their admission criteria. We just have to implement them.
Okay. So those in favour of accepting the paper, limited as it is? Okay, thank you. Hands down. The COVID Winter Grant Scheme, John. Hands down. John? Page 213.
Sorry, John. Okay, this is basically we made a commitment with back in the early part of the year. We made a commitment that in the event that the winter fund grant from the government did not cover all of the requirements that people had, that we would work to increase that, and this increase, that £100,000, which is practically all spent now, or it will be spent, is responding to our promise that we made earlier in the year. It was a grant given by the government. We used part of that grant for school children's meals during the holiday period, but a lot of it was paid out to people who couldn't afford to heat their house, food, rent, that types of things. So we've extended it, as I say, by over a third.
Any questions? I think it's very self-explanatory. Charlotte.
Thank you. Just bearing in mind that we've had to extend it and increase the amount that we've needed to spend, will you be writing to the Secretary of State ahead of next year in order to try and ask for some a larger grant for next year in order to cover this?
Yeah. The answer to that is, Charlotte, we're constantly writing but we will be applying for a larger grant next year. But this grant really was, when it came from the government, it was part of the COVID package. So whether or not it will continue or not, I don't know.
Thanks.
Any other questions? No. So can we vote on it? Those in favour? So that's unanimous again. Thank you. Just few final remarks. As it's the last executive of the year, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Charlotte, who's done a really sterling job in her 11 years in the council. And as I said, she will be very missed. And my thanks to all of you. You've done a wonderful job for me and the council in the last year and the last 2 years. And thank you. And good night.
Thanks, John, for your kind words. Much appreciated.
Bye-bye.
Good night, John.
Well done,
Good
Charlotte.
night.
Night all.
Thanks,
Well done,
Pauline.
Charlotte.
Night.
Good night. Thanks, John. Good job.